time for the World Politics Show, and a lot of people are paying attention to what is going on in the United States politics. And it looks like there may be a draft resolution taking place that would make what many people were already feeling was the case Donald Trump, the presumptive nominee, which will then give him access to a lot of the donors and all along those lines. So apparently, a draft resolution circulating among the Republican National Committee would formally declare Donald Trump the Republican Party's 2024 presumptive nominee. So while the former president would still need to reach the delegate requirements necessary to win the nomination, if the resolution is approved, he would have access to the RNC's data operation, benefit from the fundraising with the RNC, and have the support of all of the committee's ground operations. It would also mean the committee would be supporting Trump and effectively opposing former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley, which is an unprecedented break from the party's past approach to the nominating process. The resolution, which is being reviewed by the RNC, was proposed by David Bossie, an RNC committeeman from Maryland who recently endorsed Trump. The resolution was first reported by the Dispatch on Thursday, and a draft copy of the resolution has been obtained by some media, and resolved that the Republican National Committee hereby declares President Trump as our presumptive 2024 nominee for the office of the President of the United States, and from this moment forward moves into full general election mode, welcoming the supporters of all candidates as valued members of Team Trump 2024. That's what the whole resolution reads. And an RNC spokesperson has declined to comment, and the Haley campaign has brushed off the resolution and said GOP chairwoman Ronna McDaniel should organize the debate ahead of the South Carolina primary at the end of February. So it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out, and all along those lines. And we've got other people that are joining us as well. I've got Sasha Starr with me, and I've got Jim Eade here as well. I'd also seen something. I'd love to hear Jim's thoughts about this notion that apparently Trump has said that if you give money to Nikki Haley, you are effectively not a member of the MAGA camp, and all along those lines. So, and there's some people that have actually taken issue with that, and they've gone ahead and donated their money to Nikki Haley. But I just wanted your take on this and all along those lines, because I did see that was going on, where there are even some people that were in Trump's previous administration that went ahead and made donations because they're like, I guess they don't want to be part of the MAGA camp, and all in that way, because he specifically said that if you donated money to Nikki, or he had some derogatory nicknames for her, that you are effectively not a member of the MAGA camp. But what's your take on this, Jim? Because it does look like the Republicans may be going all in with Mr. Trump as the former President Trump as the nominee, and they're heading for that rematch that a lot of people are saying they don't want. But what's your take on this?
Well, I think he's right. And there's people like James Bolton, who was his national security advisor, who said that if he was asked, he would not serve on another Trump administration. And there's a lot of people that are saying we want the traditional Republican Party back, and we don't want the MAGA extreme right. Hi, Ken. And we basically are looking at Republicans rallying around Trump because they think he's the preemptive nominee, and not because they like him, but because they want to win. And the earlier they rally behind him, the better, as far as the mainstream Republican hierarchy believes. And so it's pretty much, if Haley could put a dent in him, or just stay in the race and keep pointing out what a bozo he is, it could do some damage. So I'm all for sending money to Nikki Haley. I'm not, and it does say you're not part of the MAGA extreme right.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I left the right because of some of the wrongs, right? But the left had wrongs too. So I kind of stayed in a middle zone, which I know doesn't buy this country anything. But, some of the things I tell people is, right now don't do this wrong, but we just got two old men who are up there, and all they're doing is fighting. They're cranky. They're being mean. And one is saying, he's just going to get revenge against anyone who opposed his party and him. And, I'm like, who votes for that? Well, a lot of people apparently do. And then, he's got one foot in prison at all times. At all times, you got a man. Well, why can't we get a man who has maybe some of those cranky qualities without one foot in prison all the time? Because that wastes a lot of our money and a lot of our resources and his. It's not fair to him to, for someone who's being attacked all the time, and a man who was convicted guilty of sexual harassment, one foot in prison at all times. God knows what else he has done, but people still support him. And then, you hear Glenn Beck, who is 100%, a Trump pusher. And he sits there and he says, Trump is winning everywhere. He's nailed this. He's got this. And then he had to retract a little bit because Trump didn't win everywhere. Haley did, right? And so he came back and he goes, yeah, well, Haley is winning in all the towns with the universities and the young people and the colleges and, all of this stuff. And I go, oh, so you're saying all the people with higher education and some intellect in them are voting and their future is at risk, are voting against Trump. And I feel for them because if he does win, I feel like he's going to be really nasty towards the people who didn't.
Well, he's already said that's one of the things I mentioned, because he's already said that he doesn't want to accept the money from people that are donating to Nikki Haley and all along those lines. So he's already saying that. And even to your point of convictions and everything, it was recently put out today that one of his buddies actually is going to prison. It's a short prison term, but prison nonetheless. So Peter Navarro was sentenced Thursday to 4 months in jail for contempt of Congress after defying a subpoena related to the congressional investigation into the January 6, 2021 U.S. Capitol attack. So he was convicted on 2 counts of contempt of Congress in September for not complying with a subpoena from the House Select Committee that investigated the attack.
I mean, am I wrong, guys? If he becomes president, isn't this all we're going to be doing for the next 4 years? Is somebody's going to go to trial for this and this and this, including him, right? And his whatever associates. I mean, that's all we're going to be dealing with, and that's just a waste of money. And I know it's not fair to him that people attack him like they do, whether he's right or wrong. But it's a waste of our why can't we get somebody that we can just say, hey, you know what? They can get the job done. And they might not be 100% qualified right now, because who is, right? But they're not wasting their mind resources on looking over their shoulder, wondering who's going to arrest them next. Because what does Nikki have against her? What does she have against her? Anyone?
I mean, she's got some conservative views that are out there, but I mean, that doesn't mean that there's anything.
But she's got people against her. But what does she have against her that people could come after her for? I mean, right now, before, whenever some woman was running, it was, oh, she fooled around with the man to get, ahead, or, those kind of things. You don't hear anything negative. Nothing negative.
Sasha can bring it up. I know that there were, just like there were with Kamala Harris, there were some things that she did in her administration. I had to look them up and everything. But I think Sasha has mentioned her dealings with Boeing and other things, because she was there in South Carolina when Boeing was over there. But I don't want to speak for the man, so I'm not going to speak for Sasha. Am I correct in thinking that there were some things that came out of South Carolina that people were criticizing her for? And all along those lines, and I could, like I said, I can look up some of the things, but I do know that there were, like any state, just as, like even here in North Carolina, there are people that are sometimes opposed to policy decisions as well. But I wish more people would look at the policies, but that was just my opinion. But Sasha, what do you know of Nikki Haley and what she's done in South Carolina, if anything?
Well, briefly, she was instrumental to bring some Boeing production to South Carolina, which is a very backward and developed part of the United States. There are no qualified workers, and actually those who worked on these doors that fall apart, they're being paid $9 an hour, okay? Can you imagine Boeing is paying $9 an hour to a very important job to make sure that these doors are in place, not falling apart.
So I'd like to know how much from that savings their executives are collecting bonuses.
Well, she became director of Boeing, and so I think she's did pretty well for herself. But
Right.
that's not so material because it's just another example of corruption, which is so typical for the United States. What's the most important thing that we are witnessing now? The demise of party of Trump. It's about time. It's been around since 2016. Now, remember when Trump put his candidacy for the president of the United States, there were enough Republicans at that time who could easily stop him and not allow him to be on the ballot. But they are all cowards. They are scared to say something. Oh, what's happened if he will win? Well, he will criticize me. So, okay, you know what? Let somebody else to say this. Okay, I'll be there, but let somebody else say. Same thing happened in 2020. Now it's happening final time, 2024. I think the best situation for the United States will be if Trump will lose this election with the result that never happened in the history of the United States. That will end Trumpism once and for all, and Republicans will have a chance to rebuild a normal political party. Today, it's not normal political party. It's a bunch of cowards, liars. Look at what they are doing now in even question of the border with Mexico and Ukraine, and they tied it all into one. And this Mike Johnson, he is supposedly person number 3 in the United States after president and vice president. He admitted himself that he is talking to Donald Trump about anything, while Donald Trump right now, as we speak, he is nobody, okay? He is facing several trials, 91 indictments. And Mike Johnson, he should be sued for treason and put for treason and put in prison right away for what he admitted he's doing. So finally, from what I understand now, the Senate is pushing this for decisive action. So decision will be made, and they will go around Mike Johnson and his clowns, and hopefully it will put back some normalcy. But obviously this party should not exist. They're all cowards, and they are really playing with fire. And I'll tell you, it will take a long time to rebuild this normal party once Trumpism will be done and over.
And along those same lines, I'd love to hear your thoughts around this, Jim, and even you, Kim. But as I mentioned at the beginning, the Republican Party is looking at making him the presumptive nominee. And some people, whether they like that or not, might be seeing that as the death blow, at least for the Republican Party as we know it, at least for now, because they're making him the presumptive nominee. But James, what is your thoughts around that if they're going ahead and giving him the declaration that he is the candidate, despite the fact that we've only gone through roughly one caucus and one state, and we haven't gone through the rest of them. We still got plenty more we should be going through, but they are saying that they are ready to make him the presumptive nominee. So what is your thoughts around that?
Well, we have a presumptive nominee who got barely over 50% in the Iowa caucuses and barely over 50% in New Hampshire. And you look at the independents, and they were overwhelmingly for Nikki Haley. And, you know, these are the voters that are going to swing the election in the swing states. You know, they're not happy at all with Trump. But Super Tuesday is early in March, and that's when it'll be all over one way or the other, I think. And you know, Trump will be the nominee, and we'll have an entire summer of Biden versus Trump. And, you know, it's hard to talk about policy disagreements and how we could come to grips with them when the guy doesn't have any policies to speak of.
None.
You know, and
too busy trying to keep out of prison.
Yeah,
and I kind of with Sasha here. You know, eventually maybe they'll get him in there, but this is what people tell me. You know, around here in North Carolina, not South Carolina, is a little worse, but in North Carolina, you know, I'd vote for him anyway, and I'm like, yep.
Yeah,
Folks still vote for him regardless and all along those lines, but you do have some
Sad.
folks that are, and it's very sad.
No
But then he's
integrity.
also putting out some interesting information because I think that people were fact checking him because according to him, and that being former President Trump, if Nikki Haley is elected, 82% of those that are getting Social Security would have it eliminated. And I doubt that that is seriously a Nikki Haley policy, but that is what he is trying to put out there and all along those lines. And like y'all said,
Another
there's some people
lie.
that will believe that. But there are people that are campaigning. I guess they're campaigning to be vice president and all along those lines. And there's been some interesting reaction to some of that as well, including from a famous basketball player and all in that space. But, talk about somebody that was playing the clown and all along those lines. That's what I felt when I saw this, but I'd love to hear the reactions of others on this panel and everything, because recently there was some conversation about who might be the vice president and all in that.
Yeah.
And definitely Tim Scott was one of those. And this is the one that I was going to play and tell me what y'all think. But I thought this was an example of pure clowndom.
Trump with
This
eyes
is embarrassing.
on the primaries, using the freshly engaged Senator Tim Scott to help make sure Haley doesn't have a home court advantage. Take a look at this.
Did you ever think that she actually appointed you, Tim? And think of it, appointed, and you're the senator of his state, and she endorsed me. You must really hate her.
He
No,
didn't endorse him.
shame. It's a shame. Uh-oh.
I just love you.
No, that's good. That's why he's a great politician.
So you saw that and you thought what?
I didn't bring my bucket.
Yeah, hold on a second. Here with
You
Charles.
know, many people think that he's vying to be a VP pick. We'll see. But what did you think when you saw that? I just love you.
This notion that if he makes him VP, that black people are going to rush to the polls and vote for him. He's 100% incorrect. I was disappointed for a couple of reasons. Number one, I would have never went against Nikki Haley if she appointed
She
me
appointed me, yes.
personally.
Mhm,
But I understand he's gonna win. It's just a matter of when.
mhm.
And look like we're gonna be right back
You
where
think
we.
Trump's going to win? It's just a matter of when?
It's just a matter of when. I mean,
No, Charles, we've only had 2 states. We'll talk about this, John King. But we only have 2 states. But a lot of people agree with you. A lot of people agree with you.
well, listen. If she loses South Carolina, where she was the governor, it's definitely over. Definitely over. But listen, we're gonna have the same thing we had a few years ago. It's gonna come down to Biden and Trump, and it's gonna be interesting. I think the most interesting thing is gonna be who he picked as VP.
Mhm.
I personally think he's gonna take a woman.
You don't think Tim Scott has a shot?
Um,
He seems to be campaigning. He says he's not. He was on CBS Mornings this morning. He said, no, he's not campaigning for it. You know, he's very happy with what he's doing, and we'll see. But he seems to be, from a lot of people's point of view, campaigning for this position very hard.
Yeah, I don't dislike Tim Scott. I actually,
No, I don't dislike
I don't
him, no.
dislike him, but I just don't personally think he's going to take Tim Scott. I think he's going to take a female. That's just my personal opinion.
Okay.
Yeah, it will be interesting though.
What?
But the notion that if he picks a black guy, that we're going to rush out in droves, that's not going to happen. I don't like speaking for all black people, but I am going to do it right now.
Well, I mean, I don't know how to address that. I don't think any of us can predict what's going to happen. Are we running something else? I can't
Yeah,
get it.
No,
It's Mark's. Let me
There
see.
you
There
go.
we go. Oh, where's Sasha go?
I don't know.
There we go.
There he is.
So here's my thing. I think it's all going to be dependent on the swing vote of the Federal Reserve and how we start to financially look the closer we get to this summer. And I really think that that's going to be the swing vote of everything, because if somehow by some miracle things just start looking better and people are able to really start, buying houses again and generating a livelihood. And I'm not talking about the rich people who are already there that got that PPP loan and they got it forgiven. I'm talking about the hardworking people of America who have been struggling because eggs went up so high, which I never got that one. But my breakfast down the street went up from $7 to $14. Figure that one. The egg did not go up that much, but
No, it didn't go up that much.
so,
and
but
everything.
think about this. I really think that if the economy makes a shift, that's going to look good for Biden. Do we know that Biden's going to be the man? I mean, is he going to be the one that runs? Are we going to let him run?
I mean, there's no other alternative right now. When he won a write-in campaign because he was not even on the ballot in New Hampshire, and it doesn't seem like there is any serious notion of either the Kennedy winning or of Marianne Williamson winning as well. I mean, there has been some people that have pushed out Michelle Obama, but it seems like they are definitely pushing back against that, as well as Gavin Newsom. So unless there's some drastic changes, I think we are heading toward a Biden and Trump rematch, and all in that way. And by the way, one of our regular panelists is who sent that to me, the Barkley one and everything. And I was going to read you what she said since she wasn't able to make it this time. And y'all can react, because one of the things that both her and Jacoby have talked about, that being Kelly Jones, is this notion that we could be wrong on this one. So she said, Charles could be wrong on this one. So many people are disengaged with politics, and politicians hire the best of the best marketers until not all voters will study the issues. Confirmation bias and marketing prowess could win the 2024 election. Politicians typically do not hire persons to educate, so Tim Scott could be the trump card for Trump. We need to stop underestimating Trump's marketing skills. He gave us a top-rated TV show that highlighted marketing skills, The Apprentice. And what is Biden's trump card? What will he use to wow and sway independent voters to disrupt what they are doing, go to the polls, and potentially stay on a 2-hour line and cast their vote for him? And I don't know that Scott would be a trump card, just kind of going against what Kelly was saying, because I think a lot of people are thinking of him as a clown and all along those lines. But there may be some folks that see him as a opportunity and a something to highlight and all in that way. But I'm thinking right now that he would be seen as a clown and not that much of a great thing. But there's a great.
Can we even consider, because he screams this all the time, so we have to believe it, can the elections be rigged? And because, this is all about the Republicans, that somewhere he's got, money paid at that poll that every time a ticket goes through, it's his name. I mean, could it be rigged? I mean, he that's all he cried and screamed at the last one. I mean,
well, the only conviction that we've had of someone trying to rig the election was in North Carolina, and it was the Republican Party. Usually the things that the Republican Party scream about are the things that they've done, and they're accusing the Democrats of doing. And, you get back to what Sasha was saying about the cowards in the Republican Party. Lindsey Graham, senator from South Carolina, called Trump a clown in 2016, and now he's a big supporter. Ted Cruz, who ran against him and actually won Iowa in 2016, called him a pathological liar. And now he's quick to support him. So these guys don't have the courage of their convictions. They're just, and what Tim Scott did with, that was kind of, that was embarrassing. If he wasn't embarrassed, I was embarrassed for him. And I don't think anyone should grovel the way that Tim Scott did. It just is unbecoming. And I think that's what voters are going to see and say. But there's no question, to the Kaylee Johnson's main point, that there are people who have already made up their minds. There are people that walked into New Hampshire not having made up their minds, and those voters are going to be swayed by what? They're going to be swayed by marketing. They're not going to be persuaded by logic, because the people who get the message out the best are the ones that are going to get those types of voters. And Democrats haven't been very good at messaging. For example, Kim just talked about if the economy turns around. The economy is already turned around. Inflation is going down, or it's not increasing at the rate it was. It's increasing near where the federal benchmark wants it to be. And wages are going up. Jobs are plentiful. People feel like they can quit job and get another one. The corporate America is raking in record profits. There's any way you look at it, any numbers that people have looked at it traditionally, it all points to an economy that's doing extremely well. And individuals are reporting a disparity. They're saying that the economy is poor, but they're doing well. And this disconnect has to be resolved this year in 2024 by Biden, by the messaging team behind Biden, in order to get people to realize, hey, it's not 2020, 2021 anymore. You know, we had a global pandemic and inflation soared. Okay, well, that wasn't just the United States. That was a global phenomenon. And it's now the United States has recovered better than any other developed country. And there's no question. And you look around, Germany's doing worse, England's doing worse, Russia, of course, is doing worse, China is struggling. You know, there are all sorts of ways to look at this, and all of them point to the American economy doing extremely well. And I don't see any reason in 2024 for that to change. Now, the Fed needs to lower the rates that they artificially hiked up. And I think that will we see the guts for them to do it? They don't need to be as high as they are. People can't start small businesses now, which is what we want them to do. Start small businesses, but that requires going into debt. Well, at these high interest rates, you know, it's hard to do that. So, you know, lower the rates and, you know, get out of the way of this recovery. You know, it's just shocking to me that the Fed has not acted yet. They keep talking about it, but they don't also, there's a fear that they're going to upset Trump, because if they lower the rates and help the economy, that's going against Trump's argument that the economy is terrible and Biden's destroying it. And, you know, when Trump left office, he said the market was going to crash. Well, the market's done anything but crash. It's done quite the opposite.
I think they've worked hard to prevent that. But one of the things that irritates me is this is a man who wants to be the president of the United States, to say that he's going to take care of the people, and he's hoping that we crash.
Yeah.
Before, you know, I
He's never been America first. He's always been Trump
and I'm
first.
like, why would you even say that? I mean, I know why he said, but why? I mean, do you really want the worst for the country that you're running for president? You want us to be so pathetic and groveling and, you know, in the
There's
food
his narrow
lines.
self-interest, and that's all he cares about.
It's
That's
all
all he's ever
self-interest.
cared about.
Absolutely right. Yes.
And can you imagine that Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, is consulting every day this quasi-criminal? Actually, he's not quasi, he is
He's
real
been found
criminal
guilty.
crook, really. Okay.
And it wasn't sexual harassment. I don't think it was sexual. What was the term that they
It
used?
was rape. It wasn't harassment.
Well,
It was harassment.
They stopped short of calling it rape, but it was sexual, not
Assault.
Well, gosh, I'm forgetting the word that they used, but there was a specific charge that he was found guilty of, including defamation of the woman that he did this sexual battery. That's the word. So he committed sexual battery against this woman. And so, you know, not to mince words, assault, battery, who cares? But, you know, it was, he obviously did something that no man should do to a woman, and he was found guilty of it. And then he badmouthed her, and he got this defamation suit, which now it's in court now to only decide how much he owes her, not whether he's guilty or not.
But Jim,
decided already.
Right.
And Jim, there's already
For the
money
sexual
being-
abuse, she was awarded $5 million, but I think there's still, I don't know if the defamation
is a
case-
the defamation is still in. It's I think it's in the front of the deciding factor right now. So they will make a decision probably in the next day or two, maybe in a week or two.
But what annoys me more than anything is when I sit here and I hear a man sit there and go, well, you know, she probably pulled her pants down for him and begged for it, you know, because Trump didn't need to go out and find women. They had them following. And I did. This man, and I'm going to say, you know, very, supposedly professional man. This is what he was telling me. Of course, you know, I'm not working with him anymore, but I'm like, I'm stunned because first off, one of the hardest charges in the world to get any district attorney or prosecuting attorney to take is anything that is sexually related, anything sexually related. It is just beyond my mind that they even make it to court.
She was asking for it. I can't believe anybody says that now.
Because rape and sexual assault and abuse and battery, whatever you want to call it, it's not about the sex. It's about the control.
It's about the power. But Kim, there's another major case. It's similar to Trump, but it is in the sports world, and it actually just came down. So those that follow, and it's not one of my sports that I really enjoy watching, but I will watch it on occasion. But the leader of the WWE, Vince McMahon, has been accused of sexual assault, trafficking, and physical and emotional abuse in a lawsuit by a woman who previously worked for the pro wrestling giant. So that definitely happened, and they just recently merged with the mixed martial art company UFC, and both companies are now owned by the TKO Group Holding. So definitely this is something that is going on, and that's another major leader, because definitely a lot of people around the nation, and I would argue around the world, watch and follow professional wrestling. But he is now he's executive chairman of the board of this organization, and it looks like he's going to be facing a suit from Janelle Grant, who alleges that McMahon directed her to have sex with WWE superstars and other men, and seeking to void a non-disclosure agreement that Grant said she reached with McMahon in 2022, and she said he agreed to pay her $3 million as part of that deal. So it looks like
I think too, when you get a settlement through court or a settlement of any kind, there should be no non-disclosures. Period. But all too often, and I'm hearing people talking about, well, if we settle with this, that you have to sign a non-disclosure.
Yeah.
Why? I think that is such a rape of our freedom of voice and freedom of rights. You know what? If somebody raped you, but you decide to settle out of court with them, and you get compensated for it rather than to go through court, you shouldn't be bound like this. That's the court twice raping you, which happens anyway. If you've ever been through a rape situation of any kind, the women are abused more in the courtrooms than and going through the court process.
But people keep silent.
Than they are. Yeah. So
I mean,
that's another whole topic. We need to get back on politics.
Yeah, we'll get back onto politics. I wanted to get to something that
Haley can have this. But let me tell you what the problem is. And I think Kelly brought this up. Mm-hmm. She's not in the papers as much as Trump. And we need to stop. And here I've said it probably 100 times. Yeah. We need to say her name all the time. Everything on my Facebook should be Nikki Haley, Nikki Haley. Why vote for two men, one with his foot in prison and the other one his foot in your grave? I mean, I hate putting it that way, but we got to get a little bit rough here with the roughies, because, the trumpets are that's what they understand. They claim they don't. They go, why do you all have to call names? Well, you started it. And then they did. Trump started all of that name calling and everything. And actually, I was listening to one of his earlier speeches before this year came around. I think he was in Nebraska a lot. Maybe he's having an affair there. Who knows? Because he was there a lot. But he said to the effect that let's see, where was he?
He's still doing it now.
He was changing what he was calling people.
He's doing that now. He's
literally said it on stage.
He's given a nickname I think he's given a nickname to Nikki Haley, and it's one that apparently is sticking with his people. But I know he likes to associate her with the notion of being bird-brained and all along those lines. So he's trying to stick to that.
Oh, he's got some nerve. He didn't even know who she was.
But she was governor of South Carolina. She was also the representative of the United States to the UN. And, that gives her a lot of credibility. And
not just United States, but United Nations. This woman knows how to do united. And again, I'm sure a lot of trumpets are going to be very upset if she wins. But maybe we can unite again. Maybe we can get pulled together and work on things instead of fighting over, but here's what's going to happen. And I think this is why a lot of people are like bowing down to him, because if he loses, I think you're going to see the White House get stormed and burned down this time. I really do. I mean, that was the worst loser I have ever seen in my life. Yeah. No dignity.
It's the only time in American history that the peaceful transfer of power was threatened. And he threatened it. And he has not yet paid the consequences.
No.
Many of those 91 charges against him involved that day. And whether or not he's going to pay any consequences is still very much up in the air. How they infiltrated the Georgia elections, and they tried to, get me find 11,700 votes from me. That kind of abuse of the system has to have consequences, and
But
it's
he
still
puts
up
his
in the air
hands up.
whether or not they're going to pay them.
But Jim and
He does this,
Kim
right,
and
Tim?
even Sasha as well and everything, how can we, and this tells what Kelly was talking about, because I did see a video where Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen was praising the better than estimated economic indicators, which were released actually earlier today, and the economy grew at an annualized rate of 3.3% in the last few months of 2023, faster than the Wall Street estimate. And she also remarked on inflation numbers, which have significantly improved since the COVID era. But I don't know that enough people are paying attention to that. And a lot of people, including Economist Network, have talked about how it doesn't impact them, or they're seeing, as you just said, those prices of eggs and other things going up. So how can we get the message across to actually get people to understand? Because even energy prices have declined, because gas is now down to around $1.90 per gallon from its high in June of 2022. So how do you get people to understand that? I get the infrastructure, and I get that he came down here to North Carolina. It was offering all this great money and everything. And I think he's going to another swing state, Wisconsin, that will offer them billions as well. But the common individual, how do you get them to understand the importance of the economy and how whoever is president could impact their economy as well? Because right now I think we're in a personality contest.
Well, Sasha and I are trying on his show.
Yes.
I think it's premature to do this because first you have to wait until there will be Republican nominee. And right now, most likely it will be Trump, but it's not engraved in stone yet. So why are you going to fight somebody who may not even be a nominee because of his legal troubles and lawsuits? And now imagine also a situation that, okay, let's see Nikki Haley will stop her campaign. So he is now the only one left. And he's indicted, and more than once. Then what the Republicans are going to do? They are becoming a yo-yo, a little circus, babies. Oh, our nominee is indicted. They put him in jail. What are we going to do? Please help us. They are a bunch of cowards, idiots, and traitors. That's all what they are. And Biden doesn't really have to work so hard as just to explain a few very simple, point-blank things to whoever is going to make their mind to whom to vote for, especially undecideds and people in swing states and so on. I think it will be landslide for Biden simply, except one case. If somehow Nikki Haley will become a nominee, then it's going to
much better chance than Trump.
game in town. Then she has, in my opinion, she has very good chances. But it's very difficult to envision. And I don't understand if he will be indicted when Nikki Haley is no longer there. How are they going to mitigate this problem? They're going to put as a nominee a convicted criminal?
Yeah.
Never.
Well, the other thing that I noticed is, like I paid attention when George Will stopped being a Republican. George Will is one of the most erudite conservatives and that you could ask for. And he dropped out of the Republican Party when they nominated Trump the first time. You have good, solid, traditional Republicans like Governor Sununu of New Hampshire, and he backed Nikki Haley. But it's been hard for these normal, what I would call normal Republicans, traditional conservatives to they've been either primaried or they've decided not to run because they know they would get primaried by a hard right person. And so how do you get the message out? Well, I've been reading Bret Stephens, a New York Times columnist who's a solid conservative, solid Republican. He's very, very well-reasoned articles. And he is also despises Trump. He's not in favor of he will vote for a Democrat if it's Trump, but if it was Nikki Haley, he would vote for Nikki Haley in a heartbeat. So there's a lot of people out there in the Republican Party, tried and true Republicans who just can't stand Trump, and they're not going to vote for him. But if they would nominate someone who is reasonable or has conservative ties, such as Nikki Haley, she's very conservative. There's no question about it. But more of a mainstream conservative rather than a hard right conservative. And they would support her. So they would come out in droves to support someone like that. but they're not going to touch someone like Donald Trump. And I don't know when the Republican Party is going to realize that they're going to continue. They lost in 2020, 2022. You know, they're going to lose in 2024 if they nominate this guy again. And it puts at risk the Senate and the House, all of which they should have won in 2022.
So, you know what I find? You're going to, yeah, I think you're going to too see some little gameplay going on with some of the controls of our internet and controlling what information we do and do not get. Because like I was going out and looking at some of the articles, and, you know, everybody has like a brighter it's something brighter to say about one or the other. You can't get a non-biased. It's very hard to get a non-biased political review, even at PBS, which I always leaned on PBS for a non-biased political view. And now what they do is they have two different people talking about it throughout the day. But I went to look at an article, and Spectrum came in, and I've read through this site before, and I was just reading what they had to say about Nikki Haley, and Spectrum came and took it down and said that site is suspicious. You can't look there. So then I'm out doing something else, and I post things on my Facebook and stuff like that, and I try to like say, hey, we got Nikki Haley here with no criminal background whatsoever, and you got these two guys, and all they do is they've done nothing. Fight. Why are we even having an issue about who to vote for here? And I guess somebody at Facebook didn't like it, so I'm probably going to be taken down real soon, because I do a lot of influencer promotions, and in the beginning I would get paid for it. And I got millions of hits. I don't know how, but I, would go out there I was experimenting and get millions of hits. And then all of a sudden, I guess they didn't want to pay me anymore. So they come back and they go, oh, you violated our copyright. And I go, no, I didn't. I used the music you gave me because I use your tools to build the reels, and because you say I have to. And then I use your music that goes with that. Well, I guess a couple of days ago, I posted something that caused a good bit of controversy. I wasn't being too controversial. I just, listed this is who and what. And they sent me like 1,000 notices for copyright violations.
Yeah.
From all of my posts from 2 years ago. I can't appeal over, I usually appeal one here, one they send them to me, and I appeal. I can't. So I'm probably going to be taken down real soon. Mm-hmm. And it's because my voice, because people go, oh, you hate Trump. Why do you love Biden? I go, I don't love Biden. Do you see I love Biden? I didn't say I love Biden. Yeah. I said, here's Biden. Here's Trump. And here's Nikki Haley. Well, she looks pretty good, if I were to look at the three of them, and people just like bite my head off. Well, I think Facebook is, partners with, in many ways, it's all tied with Meta, right? And I think Meta is truly owned by the Trump and some of those guys. I think they own a lot of this in the backhaul. And it's just weird for me to get that many notices in one time. Like it was just boom, boom, boom. You violated this. And I'm like, what did I violate?
Tell what you violated.
So I think you're going to start seeing a lot of your data being controlled.
There's no doubt about that and everything. I do have a quick question, and it's actually on the world side of politics and everything, because I mentioned earlier about the guy from Argentina and the unions there, but I also saw that a major corporation, I know I have a few around here, wear jeans at one point or another, and I saw that Levi Strauss is going to lay off 10% of its global corporate workforce as part of its restructuring. So I was wondering, is this going to impact the economy enough to impact both national politics as well as world politics? Because apparently we talked about the good news, but this is some bad news and everything with that retail giant and all along those lines. So I just wanted y'all's thoughts, because currently we talked about some of the media companies that have laid off, like the LA Times and a number of others. But this company has had more than 19,000 employees as of November, but it's unclear how much of the workforce is in corporate offices. But they're saying that they could affect up to 15% of their corporate employees. So if you got 19,000 employees, 15% is a pretty decent little cut in that number. I just wanted y'all's take on that and whether that's going to impact the political landscape, because we oftentimes talk about us being a working class kind of society here in the United States, but I would even argue globally as well. So what is y'all's take on that? Anybody want to take a stab at that, either Jim or Sasha?
Well, I think it's a business development cycle. I think this company and their products are no longer popular as they used to be. And some other companies, for example, Jim, you're familiar with Lululemon.
Yes.
And they have some sporty yoga style outfits, which become very, very popular. A lot of people are wearing Lululemon to offices these days. And okay, here we go.
No doubt. Everywhere.
So some companies are going down, some companies are going up.
Yeah, I think that's right, Sasha. And like I went into Nordstrom's and I bought a pair of jeans not so long ago, but they weren't Levi's. I mean, and Levi's weren't even on display. There was tables and tables of jeans, a variety of brands.
And there is no line up.
Go to Iowa, to the farmlands, and you can still see Levi's hanging up. Sure. They've been there 100 years. A couple of the old stores I go to still have them stacked up, But I will say this: eBay is laying off, I think, 9%. Yeah, and then there's Lloyd of London, who is cutting back 2,600 positions this year and closing several more branches. So I think we're still seeing some impact from the downward spiral. Some companies just didn't hold,
There's going to be survivors. There's always going to be losers and winners. And we're seeing that in some of these layoffs. That's why you look at the big picture. And the big picture is that there are more jobs than there used to be overall, and so, you can cite this company is doing layoffs and that company is doing layoffs. But if you look at the big picture, more jobs are being added every quarter than we predicted. The economics people who do in these predictions are always underestimating how many jobs we add each quarter of 2023.
There's another problem with their products is that they're so well done that you can wear them for 20, 30 years and maybe
I probably have Levi's that old.
I might have some of that old. You might have a point there, Sasha. Just really quickly, as we're talking about world politics, I did see that in the notion of Israel and Hamas that there may be heading in toward a week-long ceasefire. So apparently that is some new development that is going on as well. So I just wanted your take on that because that was something that I saw that there is possibility of a week-long ceasefire, and I was just wondering if anybody had any thoughts around that because it looks like that is coming down the pike, that this is something that is being negotiated and could be possibly happening. But anybody thoughts around that?
And what's happening? They agreed to release hostages? Hamas is releasing hostages? What's the deal?
I got to find out the exact deal, but I did see in one of the news releases that I was seeing that there was a week-long ceasefire. So let me look it up and let's find out exactly what it all entails and everything. But
and on a related subject, the U.S. has struck back at the Iran-backed terrorist organization. They're sending missiles into the Red Sea and they're disturbing shipping, and shipping is being affected by that. So that has global economic consequences as well. And so these people that are, and it's very hard to strike at them where they are because, it's a moving target. And so we could, take out a particular establishment where we think they're headquartered in. But, the U.S. has not been able to stop them, much as Israel has not been able to target the Hamas leaders, although there are occasional successes. And so they're terrorist organizations. They're hitting shipping that has nothing to do with Israel, and they're just affecting global commerce. And how are we going to stop all of this? Even if there is a ceasefire there, they're going to keep firing their drones and their missiles.
And to answer your question, the hostages may be tied into it because Hamas said on Thursday that if the International Court of Justice issues a ruling calling for a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip, the Palestinian movement will abide by it as long as Israel reciprocates, and Hamas will release all of the Israeli hostages in Gaza if Israel releases all Palestinian prisoners, according to some of the senior Hamas officials. So it sounds like they're negotiating, and I had even heard that it could be as long as a month-long ceasefire. So we'll see whether all of this plays out and whether these hostages are released. But that is what they are looking at, is the possibility of hostages being released, and maybe there being some somewhat peace in that region. But like I said, we'll see whether this is lip service or is actually done, and only time will tell that.
So far, it's a noise, nothing more, nothing less.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The first condition to stop to get ceasefire, there must be conditions of releasing all the hostages immediately, and then there could be a peace negotiated. If that's done, if it's not, there will be no pause from Israel, because they would allow them time to reorganize their defenses, to hide their leaders, and so on and on, get more ammunition from Iran or from Hezbollah or something else. I don't think that Israel is really interested in that unless hostages would be released.
Yeah, we might have something closer to home, because apparently diplomats are back in non-violence, as Venezuela and Guyana, which are closer to home here to the United States, are talking over their border dispute. So, there's been some conversation around that as well. But I guess diplomats are back in a non-violent solution as opposed to the violent solutions that have gone on in some other parts of the world and everything. No, Gary.
Shocking.
Yeah, shocking.
You think talking these things out might help? Yeah, maybe. Rather than sending missiles and drones to kill one another, yeah, it might be an idea.
Hey, a novel idea, and I know that you're all about that, Jim. So maybe you need to go and talk to them, because actually having conversations would be a wonderful thing versus some of the other things that we've done.
I think I'll defer to Sasha on this, but I think that Hamas was did what it did because it was afraid that there was this kind of discussion going on between Israel and Saudi Arabia, and that they weren't going to allow some sort of status quo to be established. And they couldn't stand that possibility, so they acted in this terroristic way. But that's hard to prove. It's just my reading of the situation.
I will go a little bit farther than that. It's not just Hamas. It's much more Russia, who was against the possible deal between Israel and Saudi Arabia and some other Arab countries.
Yes.
They, of course, engineered all this stuff. And by the way, I saw a very interesting map of the biggest subway systems in the world.
Oh, yeah, underground. Yeah.
Underground, of course. And as some of the biggest were for London, New York, and in the third place was Gaza. Gaza tunnels are the third largest system in the world, and then they would go Tokyo and Paris and so many other things. Do you know how difficult, from engineering point of view, to erect the sufficient underground system similar to what Gaza did? How much? It's not even a question of billions of dollars. Yeah. Okay, it's Gaza money probably from Qatar, same
Iran,
as same as U.S. universities are getting money from Qatar. So okay, Gaza got money from Qatar. That's okay.
Yeah, and those
money. You need project, you need engineers, you need architects. You need so much to build this system. They never have.
And unlike New York and Paris, these are not to get citizens from one part of the city to another. This is only for military use.
Yeah, and some of them are so big that you can have a car going through them. Really, they're very.
I think that there are they've found a lot of underground tunnels in a lot of interesting places. I think you're always going to find some somewhere. I mean, you can find them under the prisons. Look at the prisoner that got, free. Did we even find out how he got free? The head of the cartel in South America, in Ecuador, right? And he's been, I don't even know, have they recaptured him? That's a story I've been trying to keep up with. But, there's a lot that goes on. And I think that, we're always going to maybe not be surprised or shocked, but you're going to go, wow, somebody was certainly busy with a bunch of shovels. And you'd be surprised when people have a mission here, what they can accomplish. Like, look what prisoners have done in the past, a little bitty spoon and one scoop at a time until they get out, right?
Shawshank Redemption. Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite movie of all time, I just like cry thinking about that movie. And there are other movies, right, that are very similar, that people will do whatever it takes to get out. So you just, it doesn't shock me. Okay. What amazes me is that we're not focused on stopping the wars. And I'm hoping this ceasefire, maybe people will kind of talk a little bit and figure this out.
Sasha, do you think that there will be a demilitarized zone as there is between North and South Korea?
So I'm against that for many reasons. I think when you do that, you make those people a victim of other people who are allowed to have a military weapon base. So I don't think that's the answer either. A long time ago, I think if they had done a 2-state solution, this probably would not have become the problem it is. So I think, we can't go back. Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Right.
But I don't believe, I'm totally against it for many reasons. It's kind of like somebody coming to me and go, Kim, you know what? You can still live in that house, but you can't have a gun. That's totally unfair to me. Because my defense in this house, if somebody breaks in, is my gun. And I just don't think when you do that to a country that you leave them any means to protect themselves from countries that hate them. And I think, and my dad used to tell me, you want to keep people out of your way? Everybody have a gun. If everybody has a gun, one of two things are going to happen. Everybody's going to shoot each other and kill each other, or nobody's going to shoot each other because nobody wants to get killed. My dad used to tell me that's the best way to board planes. Here's a gun. Here's a gun. You're going to get one idiot that's going to shoot, right? But it's kind of like the church in Texas. Right now I'm mad at Texas. But there's a church in Texas, and one time a shooter came in to shoot everyone. Everybody in that church had a gun. Most churches says, do not bring a gun to church. You can't do that. That don't happen in Texas. Everybody takes their gun to church. They probably get it blessed. And this is not a funny situation, but the shooter started and didn't get very far, right? So, and he probably didn't count, because most shooters, I think they plan the places where you wouldn't have a gun. People aren't allowed to take guns, but I'm going to take a gun. So I think
like elementary schools.
Right. So, or movie theaters or universities or parks. So I think my dad was right in many ways. If everybody had a gun, people would think twice. Because most people who are going out to shoot people, they don't want to get shot. So I think my dad was right in many ways. When he told me that, I'm just like, in my mind, I'm envisioning people shooting people everywhere. And I do recall when Atlanta passed some gun law many, many years ago. And I was sitting there joking the night before. I go, yeah, tomorrow we're going to wake up and hear about a bunch of shootouts in the middle of the street. Guess what? Mm-hmm. Woke up that morning, went downstairs to work out at the gym, turned on the TV. And what did you think I hear? Mm-hmm. So there were shootouts everywhere, and they were shooting everyone but each other because they had
I'm not one that thinks that the gun problem is going to be solved by more guns, but that's a different topic.
No, it's not going to be solved by more guns. But
and
what
I do want to know.
What is your thoughts on the demilitarizing? What is your thoughts?
Yeah. Sasha, I was thinking in terms of, is it in Israel's best interest to have a demilitarized zone, because these people were getting close enough to come in and grab hostages. And if you can keep them keep it like in Star Trek. It used to be a neutral zone where neither side could enter, and so neither side could enter into this particular series. It's I'm not sure how effective it is anymore, but it's been operating in between North and South Korea. Do you think that's part of the negotiations that's going on?
No, I don't think so. There is no space, unfortunately.
That's a good point.
Densely populated area. There is no space for demilitarized zone. What will happen that Israel will take charge of Gaza, and then countries that you see, if nobody will rebuild Gaza from where it is today, it's unlivable space. It will be impossible to live there for the next 50, maybe 75 years. So the Gaza has to be rebuilt, which involves financial, industrial, engineering means, and many other things, which could be supplied by a coalition of countries like same Qatar, probably Egypt, which is close by, and maybe Arab Emirates, maybe Saudi Arabia, and so on. There's enough well-to-do countries who could do it. And those countries will take direct responsibilities that there will be no further attacks from Gaza against Israel. If that scenario will be played out, I think that's something to look forward.
I think that's something to mull over the weekend. Thank you very much for watching us, and thank you, wonderful guys, for your beautiful input. And I think we just need to continue these conversations, because maybe somebody will hear us and do the right things.
And vote for Nikki Haley.
Nikki Haley, everyone. Don't forget to go to our store and buy some of our merchandise and books. I'm going there tonight to buy a book. And everyone, have a blessed weekend. I'll see you next Tuesday. Take care.
Okay, Kim. Bye-bye.
Bye.